we are to vote on this to pass?
I have.
Everybody got that out? Is there any discussion on it?
I looked at it.
Is there a motion to pass the
Yes, I make the motion.
water distribution system?
I make the motion.
Is there a second? Have a motion by Joanne, a second by Chris. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. Let the record show that the water standards has been passed. The second thing is the state paddle trail access. We will look this over also. All right, does anybody have a discussion on this one?
I would like to ask Mr. Bose, we had some prior discussion on this. Did I understand you right that if we go along with this, we are committing ourselves to a bunch of maybes from the state?
Well, I mean, I think as I read it, you would be agreeing to put your the park, the river access at the park, onto the Yadkin River State Paddle Trail map. In exchange for that, there is potential grant money that you could get to make improvements to the river access.
Potential money,
Right.
a maybe.
Potential money, yes, sir. And you guys asked me to look at that and see what the potential downside is. To me, the downside is you are agreeing to keep the access open and free to all comers. 18 months ago, a year ago, the board had a conversation about the fact that the park was overrun on Saturday mornings, and you couldn't maneuver in there. And I think that's gotten better because you worked out a deal with the local purveyors of boats and whatnot, and that's great. I think that putting it on this map makes it known to maybe more people. And the only thing I would worry about is what happens if those people start coming to the park, which is not a bad thing, but you are landlocked. You have no way to add parking at this point in time, as I understand it, without taking action that nobody wants to take, and getting adjacent properties. And so, could the park get overwhelmed? And I think that's a potential that you guys need to think about.
So essentially, we would be committing ourselves to being well overrun, potentially in many occasions, and basing it on a bunch of maybes from the state.
I think
Doesn't sound like a very good proposition.
so. There are those downsides. I guess I'm not trying to talk anybody out of anything. I just want you to be aware of all the factors. Now, I think, it should be pointed out that 2023 is the year of the trail in North Carolina, and there is a lot of money in the state budget for trails and parks and that sort of thing. So it is distinctly
There's no
possible.
guarantee that we would get it.
There are never guarantees with grant money. But there's a halfway decent possibility that you can get some additional funding. Now, I think Brittany talked to these people. I didn't, so I'm just reading off their website. So that's my thing.
So, I asked him some questions, some important questions. These are the benefits. First, let me start with what is a benefit. The eligibility for land acquisition and access area improvement grants from the North Carolina Complete Trail Fund. So what that means is although we are landlocked and nobody is willing to sell right now, that there's no timeline as to when the acquisition will end. So when someone is willing to sell, They will purchase that for Ronda, it will be ours. It is not purchased from them and theirs, it would be ours.
Right.
So that's a benefit, regardless of how long. It is a one-time application. Once you were on it, you were registered.
As long as it happened in a near future, which we can't guarantee.
Right.
It may be 30, 40 years.
Correct, but what does it hurt to have that as a backup? I mean, if they'll purchase that for us, that can only benefit us.
Sure.
The second is inclusion on new access area signage and access area signs. So signage, they would pay for any of our signage, whether that's safety or saying where it's at, located, so on and so forth. Promotion on North Carolina State Trail and Yakin River Keeper websites and maps. That's where it will draw in people to Ronda, yes. The use of the Trailblaze logo, which would also be on our signage. So those were great, but that wasn't what I necessarily asked for. I asked about long-term funding. He said hard to say that it depends on the General Assembly from session to session. That does change. Is there a general guideline as to what is considered improvement? Because I wanted to know there's a difference between maintenance and improvement. We need to make sure that we can maintain in order to stay on this registry if we do apply.
Sure.
He did send, and which it's in part of your copy, it is a very lengthy. However, he did find it kind of odd that they did say the word maintenance in his answer, which is great for us, because that means that some of that grant money could go towards maintenance. What it covers, and it says trail amenities, but the bottom line is that in order to complete this trail, they need our water access, if that makes sense. So we're somewhere that's needed. He said that he offered $25,000 last year. If we were to get $25,000, that could help us to expand what we have at the park as far as parking and accessibility for EMS, all that's needed for this application. They will already fill it out for us, which is great. All that's needed is a letter from our emergency response. It can be our water response here at the fire department. It can be our Wilkes EMS. That's all that's
My
needed.
question is, other than widening the driveway, which will probably eat up that 25,000.
Well, that's just what they offered then.
Where would you expand? Because, like he said, we're landlocked, we don't have any place to go.
You're right. The only other option
And
that we,
my concern is, we already have a huge problem being overcrowded down there. We get put on this thing, that's just gonna multiply, because more people's gonna know about it, more people's gonna wanna access it, and
well, then we would have to discuss whether or not moving our track. That would allow us to move further. We could do parking around the shelter. We could do a pull around the shelter, and then there's that.
the track and the playground is the biggest reason for having that there.
We would just move the playground thing, because there's a large space between the
Yeah.
playground and the swings that really isn't utilized.
Yeah.
And so it would just be a matter of maybe some moving around, not necessarily taking anything, just doing some moving around. But if those funds are available and it brings more to Ronda, and it's for doing no more than what we already do.
Well, another concern I have, and I'm not Debbie Downing this,
understand.
don't misunderstand me, but we've seen time and time and time again, all these people come to Ronda to access that river access and never spend a dime here. We don't make a dime off of them in any way, shape, or form. We've discussed doing a permit or a per-person fee for out-of-towners to come in to receive something, because they're clearly using our access.
And we
It's
could
not
do
costing
that.
anything. And if we do this, we're completely cut off from any funds there. And they're still not spending any more money here in this town. I don't have a problem with this. I just want the town to be able to benefit.
Understand.
And I get leery anytime the government says, here's free money.
Well, I
You
think
know,
at that point,
are the strings going to be tauter how do you like that word, talk to her, then,
That's a learned
is it going to outweigh the benefits?
I think the main point is they need us.
Yeah.
I think that's the main draw, is that they need Ronda.
All of Woods
And-
County needs Ronda, but they don't show us that.
I think improving it for our EMS and our water rescue capabilities and improving our boat ramp and just improving it for the citizens of Ronda alone, I think would be enough to.
Well, now,
should just
think
try.
about that last part you just said, improving for the citizens of Ronda alone.
Because a lot of our
We're-
citizens do put in down there.
We're gonna put it on the map. We're gonna bring more people in. We already have citizens complaining they can't access it. We're gonna add more people there to give them even less access. And when you guys were talking about how you can rearrange things, you're gonna rearrange it in a way, maybe some of the older people would like to come down and walk on the track aren't gonna go along with it, aren't gonna like it. So that's gonna take even more usage away from our citizens.
It was never our decision.
I'm just playing devil's
No,
advocate.
because that's not right. If we can't get rid of the track, we would just have
Right,
to move it. Because
right.
I know how many people walk down there.
Yeah, and like I say, I'm truly just playing devil's advocate.
Because that's what her and I did when this
Yeah.
first came about, because we looked at it from all angles.
So there's two grants for this. They approved $25 million for the Great Trail State Program, and then they also $5 million in complete trail funds. The difference is that only designated state trail projects are eligible for the trail funds. That's what they need to complete the trail, is the water access. So you're looking at $30 million. Now,
But
what they
we would only get a
Right,
fraction of
right,
that.
whatever, I mean, I'm not sure what Ronda would get, if that's a large, I mean,
I just wanna be careful that we're not handcuffed and get, $20,000, $30,000 to be handcuffed for
Ever.
eternity in
Yeah.
the state.
I got you.
I mean, that would definitely not be a win-win scenario.
Do you ladies have anything to add to this?
Let's talk about, like your canoers and your kayakers that are putting, going in the park, but not all of them are doing that now. They have another access that they didn't have before. So it may not be a problem.
They have the
They
Royal River access.
have access down here on Main Street. That's probably building now.
How we get in down there? Because I can't
I haven't been all the way down there, you know.
see the path or anything, so.
It's private property, okay? Some access it by Main Street or Second Street.
Yeah, I continually see the buses coming by the house.
It is,
I saw the bus go down, and I've never been down to follow it and see what they're actually putting in now. But it actually,
this is a person who owns property and is willing to let people come, no charge or any, no stipulations, okay? All right, this is just out of goodness of their heart.
So that took away some of the crowd and some
well,
of
the only bad part about that is something that we build the Bible in case something happens during the auction or finishing up the field, if anything happens right there, so.
That is
That's
private
between
property.
them.
And
Well,
that's,
that's like that here town, if something happens during the auction.
That's none of our concern, it's private property, it's none of our concern.
Yeah, but I'm not about to.
Oh, yeah, part.
Town round, if anything happens, the town's liability
I don't know
insurance
what the deal is.
will have to cover, if they find something defective or whatnot, because you actually allow somebody without written permission there. So,
well, in order to that, whatever, you could easy to put a sign up, enter your own risk, okay?
I'm responsible for it, so.
That's what I'm talking about, okay?
I'll be on.
You're not responsible for any accidents or all that other
consequence, I think they did mention the EMS to, launch as far as the swift water rescue,
And they do,
so.
they do, yes, they do.
I know, I got further around between here and, landfill up there. I didn't think that's something that my daughter was, standing there crying. And I was under the water, I could see her up there. And I could actually hear her hollering under the water. But I had a life jacket on. So that's what got me turned up. You know, I saw my life flash before my eyes. The last thing I want to see is her bawling her eyes out. You know,
Yeah,
so.
there's really, they call it, where the island is, okay, and that has been a hazard forever. Believe me, my brother, before he died 30 years ago, there's incidents, but what you gotta do, that is natural resources, it's natural water. Okay, and the people have to be very careful and follow the rules for our life.
We need to get back on the state paddle trail disaster access application. Is there a motion to approve this?
Is there a time limit on how soon we have to?
I think when Brittany spoke with, Edgar, it was sort of a time-sensitive thing, so something we sort of need to make a decision on, I think, sooner rather than